Well, we just know that the global government, which is now openly, publicly announced, no more denying it, believes there's too many people in the world, and have said they want to stage chemical, biological, radiological attacks, and generally blame it on some third party they want to attack. So that way they get to destroy or damage the nation that they're really targeting, the United States or Mexico or the nations in Europe. And then meanwhile blame it on some foreign enemy. That could certainly come out of this. But it could just be a bunch of fear-mongering and hype and governments piggybacking because they need a distraction from the people waking up to what they're doing. And Congressman Ron Paul, back in 1976 when he was just a doctor, writing in a book, called it an evil political maneuver, blatant advertising efforts to panic people into taking swine flu. This is a story up on Infowars.com from the book Swine Flu Exposed, a book by Eleanor McBean, Ph.D., ND, from 1976, quote, Dr. Ron Paul calls the swine flu vaccination program, which was a deadly failure, a shocking misuse of funds and an evil political maneuver. He continued calling it a blatant advertising effort to panic the people into taking swine flu shots. Will fail, and he was right, it did fail. So
miserably.
And meanwhile, we have Baxter getting the World Health Organization contract right now, and they've gotten past suspicious contracts to make a supposed vaccine for this. It's just very, very serious. And then in the 2005 Security Prosperity Partnership North American Union documents that Judicial Watch and others sued to get, and then again in 2006, secret documents that were released that I, by the way, show in my film, Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. In Endgame, we have all the documents, and Kurt and Emma wrote a story for Infowars.com titled Flu Pandemic Hype and Other Pretexts for World Government, and it has Ban Ki-moon, the head of the UN, and others saying that basically the UN is running the U.S., Mexican, European, Asian response to this, and then saying this is a great test of their takeover drill of our society. And then in closing, Reuters reported yesterday that Janet Napolitano, the head of Homeland Security, said that, this flu may not be a pandemic, it may go away in a few weeks, but that another deadly one is coming soon, and she smiled.
A psychic, is she?
I guess so. I guess she's remote viewing or something. So they get power and control, order out of chaos, as Steve said earlier. So we've got to watch this very, very closely. We are praying for the for something good to happen, but we're preparing for the worst. We're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
Steve, give us a capsule, then we'll go to calls.
Well, real quickly, I believe that we are in a total war mode right now, both in the natural and supernatural realm. I believe the four horsemen of the apocalypse, to use prophetic symbolism and imagery, couldn't be more exact. I believe that you're seeing the complete plan being implemented by the powers that are to ultimately wipe out mankind. Jesus said if the days weren't shortened, there'd be no flesh left alive. When I wrote the book Genetic Armageddon, George, hardly anybody could even grasp the thought that they could graft human genes into animal genes. And now the stuff that's being done, whether it's cloning or transgenic monsters being chimeras, the days of mythology, the days of legend are going to come into everyone's immediate perusal. And my expectation and timing is this stuff's going to start big time, whether you're talking about disclosure. Look, whether people believe it or not, the idea is that these people that are plotting, planning, and implementing our mutual destruction believe this stuff. And so it's, as Alex and I talked on his show today, what people have got to understand is they have a plan. They have the capability, they have the power, and they have the determination to implement it. And we need to basically expose it. And by exposing it, here's the thing I want to make clear, too. The best antidote I know for fear is the truth. And that's why the mainstream media can't even approach the truth. Because, as you've heard me say on this show and others, the mainstream media cannot even begin to comprehend the truth because they are told and they're scripted. Real quickly, psychological operations, Lieutenant Colonel in my office less than a month ago telling me, Steve, nothing goes on the mainstream press, nothing goes on the airwaves, mainstream. I'm unless we okay it and we write their stories for them.
All right, let's go to the phones. Mark in Fort Worth, Texas, first-time caller. Hi, Mark.
Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Good. We're great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on air. I just got out of the Army. I'm 25 years old.
Thanks for serving, by the way, Mark.
Well, thank you.
You're a terrorist, according to Homeland Security.
Yeah.
I just got out after 7 years. Did my first tour in Iraq in 2004. Towards the end of our tour, I received the last 6-series shot for anthrax. Since then, I have not gotten sick. I have not had a cold. I have had nothing. And I'll take my answer off air, but I was wondering how that plays into effect with this possible swine virus.
Sure thing. Who wants that? Which one?
Well, I know the anthrax shots got suspended, 5 years ago because they hurt so many people and killed so many others. And they told the troops they had to take it, but it was actually an experimental vaccine. And so they can make troops, because they waived their rights going into the military, they can make troops take approved vaccines. They cannot make them take experimental vaccines. And they tried to make the troops and first responders in the U.S. take the smallpox shots, but George led the charge on fighting that back in 2003. And so the vast majority refused to take it, and some did and died from it. So I'm glad that you've had, no ill effects from it, if I heard you correctly. But just throwing this in because it's important in the whole discussion, and we can go to another caller, get Steve's take on that, is that this is nothing new for governments to launch biological attacks or for these systems to be used to undermine nations, to implode nations. If you go to the Encyclopedia Britannica, you can read about use of biological weapons in the ancient world. The first use was 1500 BC, or we're talking 3,500 years ago, by the Hittite text. And then, of course, there's Homer's Iliad during the Trojan War, where they poison water supplies of their enemies with biological weapons. In the medieval period, we have the Mongol Empire catapulting plague-ridden bodies over Chinese walls, over the Great Wall of China. And then we have official British manuals used in the 1700s all over the world about how if you've got your troops sick with smallpox or something else, you want to wipe out some Indians, make sure that your men who are sick, you take those blankets from your infirmaries and give those to the natives. And so I'm reading that from the encyclopedia.
How come either one of you haven't jumped on the Fort Detrick situation, 2 missing vials?
Well, I think that's, and it was 3 missing vials. I think that what's interesting is that we have 21 polo ponies dying of equine encephalitis and no linkage.
Well, pharmacy said they may have put something in the feed.
And by the way, remember last year the Australian government...
George.
Hold on.
Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I'm just saying that's a Kool-Aid statement. Can you imagine that if these people are going to depopulate the earth, that, except for them, of course, can you imagine that if we're going to go into let's say, revert 300-400 years, obviously if you can control the horses, we're talking about people that have thought this out. It's just like when I broke the story on chronic wasting disease and the whole development of mad cow disease. I said this is going to be released. We know the story. It was released in Britain. So what's going on right now is it's beta testing of everything they plan to do, and if it doesn't go lethal at this point, it doesn't mean it won't go lethal at a later point.
Yeah, they're testing the spread of it, and go back to 2001 and then again last year. The British government admitted, we accidentally released foot and mouth from our Porton-Down bioweapons lab, and that goes back to the murder of Dr. David Kelly, which, now there's eyewitnesses to them dumping his body, the head of Porton-Down bioweapons lab. And then they just calmly announce in the back of the paper like it's no big deal, by the way, we released the foot and mouth. And then the government admits they released from a lab another horse flu last year in Australia. So, again, there's just thousands of examples of this.
Next up, we shall go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Lorenzo, take it away.
Hi, George. How you doing?
Good.
Alex, Ian, nice to talk to you guys.
Welcome.
I was just wondering, is there anything that we can do, just as a general population to help point the finger and blow the whistle on some of these groups? I mean, maybe not stop them, but to inform others, Or do we just sit there and, kiss our you-know-whats goodbye?
You can't blow